Hey there friends, how's it going? My name is Kevin and this podcast is brought to you by Omaze. They are giving you the chance to win a custom Tesla Model S and $20,000. The Tesla has been custom built by Unplugged Performance and it comes with 762 horsepower, a top speed of 163 miles per hour, acceleration 0 to 60 in 2.3 seconds, estimated range 348 miles, and it also has a crazy amount of modifications. If you're not already aware, Omaze always sponsors a great cause with each giveaway, and this one is for Give Power and 501c3, who seek to mobilize the next generation to fight climate change by creating a global community that embraces low carbon culture. 501c3 intersects innovation and storytelling to bring attention to solutions that can build a cleaner, more sustainable, and more hopeful future. Give Power is on a mission to help the roughly 2.2 billion people around the world who do not have access to safely managed drinking water. The nonprofit uses its deep solar expertise to power and provide clean water, food security, and light to regions in need around the world. So to potentially win that Tesla Model S and $20,000, as well as support Give Power and 501c3, go to omaze.com/callmekevinclips. Thank you, Omaze, for sponsoring the podcast, and I hope you enjoy this insightful conversation. Hello?
Hello?
Hey, Josh, how are you doing?
Great. Oh my god, is our audio working the first time around?
I think so. Even like looking at the levels, everything just looks great. This was meant to be.
Oh, that's sensational and so rarely happens.
So are you prone to audio problems like myself then?
I just think, like, I don't know, there's a long history, I feel like, for everybody, especially in the internet age, especially in like the Skype era, where like every single voice call starts with like, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, hold on, I can't hear you.
It really is the case, and it's weird because I don't know what kind of setup you have, but like I've spent a decent amount of money to get like a top of the line setup for audio, because obviously that's half of what we do. And still, there are just countless problems, and everything breaks all the time. You swap USB, everything stops working.
Yeah, it just never ends. And then especially if you're using Windows, then it's like, oh, they wanted to update, huh? And it just changed everything. That's cool.
Yeah, Windows 10 seems to do that. I like Windows 10 a lot more than some of their previous ideas, but Jesus, some of the updates really just break everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I guess that's kind of the fun, right? You gotta play it fast and loose. I know some people too that we all used OBS. Anyone that doesn't know, that's like the streaming software that I think most of us probably use.
Yeah.
And I know some people that are like, yep, every time I see an update, I just hit install immediately. And I'm like, oh my God, like right before a stream, you would do that?
Oh, I know.
It's like, that's risky and I like it.
I'm not brave enough for that. I at least put them off for a month, and I'm just like, I'll leave future Kevin deal with that. And I keep kicking the can down the road because I'm just terrified something's going to break. But it never has on OBS. It's just my inner demons telling me to not do it. Everything inside me.
Fingers crossed, right?
Yeah, Jesus, I'm probably cursing myself now.
No, but I'm the same way, where like I won't update unless I really have to, and so I'll have like, or like, with like editing, you don't want to update your editing software because they always change stuff and it'll ruin everything forever. Then you can't download the old version. It's always something.
It is, and I think especially with editing software, I use the Adobe suite. I'm not sure what you use, but it can be a bit fickle when it updates. It kind of has its mood swings, Sometimes it just doesn't want to work.
Speaking of, I should probably close Premiere in the background here. I feel like that can't be good for me to be leaving that open.
And I'm not joking. I'll do the same thing because mine is also open with an edit I was working on. Before I go into my next tangent, because I was going to ask you about Premiere and stuff like that. Just so people are aware on my end, I think most people know who you are, but you do variety gaming content as well. And it's weird because we have a lot of similarities but a lot of differences as well, especially in the way we do content. Like I post every day, you post quite infrequently, but there are like massive undertakings of projects, and I'm super interested to know how that actually starts and ends, the whole process of you come up with an idea, or do you just start playing a game and something dawns on you and you've got this backlog of footage that you turn into a video? Like, how do you make a video from start to finish the way you do?
Yeah, I can go into that whole thing. But yeah, for anyone that doesn't know who I am, my name's Josh. I do a channel called Let's Game It Out. As Kevin said, it's variety of various different types of things, but he and I do stuff in the same vein of a lot of messing around and sort of like games are really just a conduit for screwing around, I would say, right?
Yeah, I think so. I was actually just talking to someone earlier, and he was talking about me and someone else. And he's like, you kind of like are like anti-gamers, because you take the game and you're not playing it the way it's meant to be played. Like, you're just screwing with it half the time. And I think you especially take that to an extreme with some of your ideas.
Well, thank you. But yeah, so the process for me, it's evolved. I'm sure for all of us, like what we try to do evolves over time. Partially, I imagine, because, mixing it up kind of helps keep us stimulated, but also like just kind of always going for a moving target, I think is kind of fun as a creator to try to figure out like how far can you push what you're doing or yourself or whatever it is to keep it interesting. But for me, it's where it sort of started was just like, so kind of the background is the channel wasn't always about messing around and breaking games. It was a much more traditional Game Grumps style, like long play, unedited, just playing games, just let's plays, straight let's plays. And I used to have a like a buddy that I played games with, and then he moved on, and I kind of had to change formats because it's a lot harder, I think, to carry a long play alone, like without editing breaks and things like that. Because when you have banter with two people, it's just so much easier to keep that flow going. But when it's just one person, you have to find like, I mean, some people can do it very, very well. I cannot. I need to have like some editing breaks in there. That was my thought, which was like, you can keep the flow going better if you start editing and taking out like a lot of dramatic pauses and things like that.
Yeah.
So I kind of tried pushing towards like still doing let's play stuff and just making the editing more punchy. And that kind of evolved into being like, well, I like what I'm doing, but it doesn't feel very much like what I really want to be doing. And then I started reading, do you know Gray still plays, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Good guy.
Yeah. Really nice dude.
Yeah, he's a super nice dude. And one of his, in my opinion, one of his major contributions to the space is he used to post a lot to r/let's play. And he would throw down like all kinds of good information as to how to like, how to get your numbers higher, like what you want to focus on, like all of these different things. And what's funny is like, I've never really watched a lot of Gray's content, even though he's in the same space we are. He also messes with games and loves to horse around and all that stuff. But what I really got out of becoming aware of him was two things. One was like his like amazing sorcery on how to like handle YouTube and how to like try to, break into the space. But also I was like, oh, you can actually, like, there are successful YouTubers out there that are just messing around in games and doing well with that. And I was like, that's way more the kind of stuff that I like doing. And so that's when I became aware of like Gray doing that, you doing this, RT Game, like just this whole space where I was like, oh my God, there's a bunch of people already doing this. This is great. Like this is like a viable space to do this kind of stuff. So I kind of ended up moving that direction of like, okay, and it was never that I wanted to like copy anything that anyone else was doing. It was just, it became aware that it was like, oh, you can get really weird on YouTube and it's okay.
Yeah, I like that. It's interesting that you took such a shift from, because I did look back on your channel a bit and I saw that like I can't remember the exact series, but you were posting daily. And I'm like, that is a brave shift to go from daily to I don't know if it went gradually. Did you go daily every second day to every week, or what your exact transition was? But it was a sharp right turn, which is very brave when it comes to content creation, I think.
Yeah, I think I got a lucky break. I can talk more about that later too, after this. But the process for making a video now is pretty much like I'll look for a game, I'll fire it up, and I'll test it out to see like, okay. Because obviously, like, I mean, I think one of the kind of rules of YouTube, very loosely, obviously, but like if you can post daily, awesome. That's more vectors for people to find you and like more chances for people to, and also for people that already like you, they have more stuff to watch, and so everybody wins. But if you can't do daily, like let's say you do weekly, you want to be able to give people like a week's worth of content in one video. And so with that kind of mindset, whenever I put forth a video, I have to find a game that can give me enough, or like that I can mess around with enough to make the wait worth it. because as you pointed out, like I went from daily videos to like not daily videos, and like sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's 3 weeks, sometimes it's longer or shorter, but it's always a little bit different just depending on how long it's taking me to extract everything out of a game before I can release the video.
Yeah,
but usually I'll like.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you work away.
So like I'll find the game and I'll mess around with it for a bit, and I'll take notes to be like, okay, here's what I'm seeing in this game and here's where I think it can go. And depending on the game, I'll either be like, that's enough, let's start from here, and then I'll just dive into it and then just see where it takes me. And then other times, like games that I know a little bit better, like Planet Zoo, I'll usually have an idea in mind before I dive into it. So like, and that evolves as it goes. So as an example for Planet Zoo, like I knew for one video, I was like, okay, I want to see if I can make like a moon base type thing. And this isn't a game, of course, that doesn't have like moon assets. So I was like, how is this possible? So I did a bunch of like prototyping to see if it's even possible to like fake that kind of setting in a game that doesn't necessarily allow you to do that. And so like in that case, I had to like, okay, there's a snow level. Let me open this up. Okay, so now we have the ground that kind of looks like the moon. How do I black out the sky? And I was like, okay, well, you can build like you can use like, darkened shapes. And so I built like an entire, like I went to the edges of the map and used these little black squares and just built walls all the way around it. And then, pulled back and looked at the whole thing, and I was like, well, this looks super janky. You can see like all the ways this isn't working, and I had to like tweak it and figure it out, and then like adjust lighting and do all this stuff just to see if I can make it work. Then it was like, yes, this will work. That's all I need. Let's go with the premise of that, and let's see where it takes us. And that's how that particular video evolved, where it's like I had that one thread of an idea, and it just kind of spiraled from there.
That is super interesting. And like, I don't think many people appreciate the amount of work that goes into that. And for every one you do, I imagine there are ones that just you go down this route and at some point you decide this isn't working. I'd rather do something else. Like that. It's a lot of work before you even start making the video.
It's a sad moment when you get like, at least for me, like I'll get like 4 or 5 hours into playing something and be like, I don't think this is going to work, or I need to table this for now and stop and think about it some more.
Yeah, it happens to me occasionally as well, where I think like this will be perfect for a video, and I might even be done the whole recording. I don't usually record for more than an hour and a half at most. But even then, it's pretty crushing because not only, I guess I've got a different weight on my shoulder in that I know I have to find something else fast because I'm doing daily content, but I can't imagine how crushing it would be to spend 5 hours investing into this idea and realizing that it's just not the right thing for you. That must be...
Well, sometimes it becomes like that educational endeavor to be like, well, how can I make this work? Can I salvage this somehow? Or is it like completely dead in the water?
Mm-hmm.
And you always want to, but I agree with you. Like it's a completely different beast when you know that you've got that time crunch always looming over you. And that was always super stressful for me. Do you do all your own editing for all your videos?
I don't anymore, but I do edit every video. So I have people that help me with every video and do chunks of it, but I still do the final edit, move things around, shift things and whatnot. That was actually going to be a question I was going to ask you as well, funnily enough, because I'm very curious what the answer is when you've got so much footage to edit down.
Yeah, so I do all the editing, all the recording, all the everything.
That's a lot. I am impressed.
Well, and part of it is for me, like I think editing was always the first love before I even did like YouTube stuff. Like I've always like played around with editing software since I was like 14 or 15. And I'm 37 now, so it's been a number of years at this point.
Oh my god, you've like watched the whole editing, like I guess the whole industry change at that point over that many years, surely. Like,
yeah, it was really bizarre because even as a kid, like I would there weren't easy ways to like capture video game footage back then.
No.
So it was like I had like I think they called it a breakout box, which was like a thing, like because back then computers didn't even have a way to like natively capture like a video signal, like not even from like a camera, and there obviously weren't smartphones yet. Mm-hmm. So like I remember my mom bought this, like the only equipment you could really buy was like industry stuff. So my mom like saw that I liked doing this stuff and bought like a capture card for my computer at the time so that I could mess around with like videos and stuff. Because my friends and I think we all did that at some point, right? Like you can get especially now, you can get your hands on a camera, which everybody can. You want to make like fun videos with your friends and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, but my mom got like the way it worked back then before like subscription models and all that. I think it was like Adobe Premiere 3 or something like that. But it was like $600 software, and it's like it's hard to justify like giving your like 15-year-old like that kind of software. But there was a workaround for that, which is you could just go on eBay and buy like the update version of Premiere and only pay $100. And then also while you're on eBay, pick up an older version of it, and you can just use the serial key from that in the updated version. Get it cheaper.
I think I remember that. What kind of year are we talking here with this?
I want to say this was 1997, if I had to guess. Or the turn, like right around 2000, like around that time.
Okay, so I was about 4 or 7, so I wasn't quite that early on it, but I do remember the days of like the capture cards when they started to become a bit more popular, like Dazzles and the HD PVR and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I do remember there being some sort of a thing like that as well, where you could get the upgrade codes. I think most creators back in like 2009 and 10 just pirated it because there was no money in it. So I think most people, and just being quite young at the time, a lot of people would just pirate it because your parents aren't going to shell out a few $100 to be like, oh, I want to play video games and cut out my 360 no scopes and upload them to YouTube to show my friends. It wasn't an easy sell.
Yeah. I mean, but it was really cool for all of us, I think, when we saw YouTube or like any sort of like ability to share your stuff become a thing. Because I mean, before that, it was like the only thing I really wanted was to make these little videos and like show them to friends. But even then, it's like you got to think of the overhead of like, well, how do I send them a movie file?
Yeah,
like no one has bandwidth. How do you show this stuff?
It's so just weird, to think about that now. That is bizarre to think. Like even just the fact of just sharing it to friends must have been incredibly difficult.
Yeah, I remember like that was one of the reasons I got like a web domain which had nothing on it and didn't matter, but it was solely so I could have web space just to put little videos up there.
You were YouTubing before YouTube even existed.
I was.
That's mad.
It's funny too, because like when YouTube started to become like a viable thing where creators could like share stuff, not even for money or anything, just have a platform to share it. I was like way deep in another career by that point, but I was like, oh, this is what I've been waiting for, is for like there to be a platform where people can just share stuff and like just vomit their creativity onto the internet.
That is so crazy, because it feels like when I talk to creators who were around in the early days of YouTube, and I was there as well, it felt like everyone was just doing it for fun, never really saw it going anywhere or never expected to be doing it, just started doing it. But you were doing it before it was actually even possible to do it, which is a truly unique situation. I don't think I've ever heard that before.
To be fair, it was probably not like a viable product, which I mean, I think we all had to sort of like grow into that. From like, because I mean, it was probably more like the 30-second to like 2-minute like little meme type stuff.
Yeah, but it's weird because that's almost becoming more current again. Like back in 2010, 2011, YouTube content was recording gameplay for 2 hours, picking your best game of Call of Duty, uploading that, and just vlog talking over the gameplay.
That's
so
true.
It was not entertaining at all. I was only talking to this with my girlfriend yesterday, and it was just... it wasn't entertaining. And I think at the time when I was doing it, that's why I didn't have such a great work ethic, because I felt like the content I was making wasn't entertaining and I wouldn't watch it, so why would anyone else watch it? So I started doing one video every 2-3 weeks, but not in the way you do it, where you put a lot of effort. It was the same situation, taking one game and just chatting about whatever over it. But it's mad to hear how ahead of the curve you were in some ways. That's crazy.
Oh, thank you. I should see if I can dig some of this stuff up. I'm sure it looks much better in my head too. Because I'm pretty sure back then it was like, because I don't think I saved any of the like raw footage, so it's going to be like a Windows Movie Maker file with like a 240p resolution and just looks god awful. But I'll have to see if I can find some of this stuff.
That
some of it's eerily
so
similar.
Yeah, that would be, dude, that's like a time capsule. That is so cool if you could go back and look at it. You
Yeah,
gotta
I'll just
try
see if I
it.
can find some stuff.
So when did you, if you were in a viable career, then you'd started down this other path. What brought you back to YouTube and when?
So it was probably around, what the hell year is it? Is it 2021 now? Is that where we are? Time has no meaning anymore.
I know exactly what you mean. It feels like everything's moving really fast, but also super slow.
Yes, yeah. So
Strange.
it must have been, I want to say 2015 or so. I was in like a completely different career path. I was working in video games, but I was doing like business type stuff.
Okay.
And I'm not really like a good business. I mean, I'm an okay business person, but like there's some people I think that really honest to God feel like they were put on this earth to like cut sweet deals and talk that language and stuff. And it's just not really for me. I'm not very good at caring about stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it just so happened that at that period of time, the company I was working for had like a fairly massive shift in what they were trying to do. And so they had like mass layoffs. And so I suddenly found myself with a lot of free time on my hands after the mass layoffs. And I was sitting with my then girlfriend, now wife at the time, being like, man, what the hell do I do now? Like, do I keep pursuing the thing that I already had a career in that I wasn't particularly happy doing, but like had a salary and stability and all that stuff, or do I try something else? And she was like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to be a fucking YouTuber. That's what I want to do. She's like, well, why don't you give it a shot and see how, like, I mean, she was like, well, don't do it stupidly. Like, try to come up with a plan, and don't work yourself into a hole of poverty that you can't get yourself out of, but like give yourself a time frame and try and make it work. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And that's when I found one of my buddies, Anthony, and we figured out what we wanted to do. We started practicing. We started like figuring out what kind of recording we wanted to do. We got real deep into this too. Like we were testing out all kinds of like compression methods until we realized it doesn't matter, because then you go on YouTube and it just like crushes your videos anyway, like visually.
It really does.
That doesn't matter. Like we'll just go with whatever OBS says is good.
Yeah, I totally get what you mean when it comes to being compressed down and whatnot. But it's cool that you put this time aside. I was actually going to ask you before you said it, like, did you have a time frame in mind that you said, okay, like a year of doing this, if it's not working, I'm going to have to just go do something else? Did you have a time frame in mind for that?
I did. I want to say it was probably, I'm trying to think, because I kept kind of doing like side jobs just because it felt really guilty to not have any sort of income at all. Like I wanted to make sure I could like make ends meet. And thankfully, like not everyone gets to have this, but like when I got laid off, there was like a severance package and all that stuff. So I had like a little bit, I had a pretty decent amount of savings in addition to severance stuff. So I was like, okay, before I like run myself into the ground, here's how much runway I have. And so I was like, okay, I could probably do like a year, but I was like, I'm gonna feel real guilty long before that. So I want to say I gave it about 6 months before I like found another job and started like doing both at the same time.
That's really interesting, because I was in a similar situation as well, where I had a business and due to an injury I had to sell it. So I had like a bit of a nest egg to keep me okay. And when I came back doing YouTube for the second time, I think like I got like about 8,000 subscribers from my old channel that I did back in like 2011 come over to my new channel. And I was the same kind of, okay, I have like a window where I can keep doing this, but at some point I will have to stop if it doesn't at least gain some traction to keep me going. So it's weird that I find that really relatable, the situation you were in. It's quite funny.
Yeah, and I'm sure that was really scary too. Like every day it's like, okay, no pressure. It's only putting everything on the line. This is gonna work.
Yeah, like I was in a slightly different situation because I was forced to not really do anything else. Like there was probably some limited jobs I could do at the time, but due to an injury, I couldn't do much else. So I was pretty happy to do to do videos in the meantime, but I never got to the stage where I was better and I was like, okay, I have to make the call, which I feel is a much braver situation to be in, because I didn't really have a choice in my one. You had the choice, and you picked the one that you were passionate about, rather than just going, okay, I'm going to go do this soul crushing job just because it's a job and I need the money and I need to pay rent, which is a totally reasonable route to go down. But I'm glad you went the other way and followed your passion with that, and had a nice thought process. It wasn't just, I'm going to be a YouTuber, I'm just going to start talking and uploading. You had a really well thought out plan, which is cool.
Well, in theory, but I think a pitfall I ran into, and I think a lot of creators do this too, is I think you start, and this is where I think most people probably should start, which is, what do I want to see? Like, what kind of content would make me happy? And what kind of content do you want to watch yourself? But I think what ends up happening is a lot of people start there and then never sort of move out of that space. And I think for some people that can really work out, because the thing they want might be something that everybody else wants too. But if what you like isn't necessarily what is going to do well on YouTube, then your chances of growing dwindle all the time. And so for when Anthony and I did the show, like, a lot of it came from what I wanted, which was I loved the Game Grumps at the time. I want to do like a Game Grumps type thing. But like, the popularity of that kind of format was already on the downturn, and everyone was looking for more like punchy stuff or just something different than they had seen. They already had their Game Grumps. They weren't looking for like a new duo to watch. They already had that. They've already seen all that. And so for me, what was really the big turning point was, like, Anthony and I did the show for 15 months. And I think when he left, we had about 370 total subscribers over that 15 months. And that's when I kind of started to change things around and be like, all right, what are people like? What is the kind of stuff that people actually are looking for? Like, what is the kind of stuff people actually want to see? And can I move it gradually in that direction and see if there's like a middle ground between like the raw thing that I want or would want to see, and something that's more palatable to more people? Because I think it's okay to get as esoteric as possible with your content, but you have to know what the cost is of going that route. But that was really the turning point, which was like, all right, let's start to take this more seriously, away from what, like, explicitly what I want out of it. Because I've already done that now. I already had 15 months of that. Let's try to let's mess around and see what we can change to make it something more palatable for more people, I should say. And that's sort of when the sort of like more subscribers and more views started coming in.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, because we do tend to cater for ourselves when we make content sometimes as well. We're thinking everything from our own perspective. Even when it comes to titles and thumbnails, it's like, what would I click on isn't necessarily what other people might click on. And it's hard to see it from other points of view. And also just doing content that you enjoy and other people can enjoy, because if I wanted to just do what I enjoy most, it would probably be just playing games with my friends every single video, just the people totally, I play friends that I play with anyway. But people aren't really interested in that, because there's going to be no engagement, no real idea behind the video. It's just me chatting with friends, which is great, but it's not going to build a channel, unfortunately. But I get exactly where you're coming from on that one.
But yeah, and I think the end goal is always kind of the same, which is like, you just want to be having fun and bring people into that, so people can feel like we're all hanging out together. I think that's the big power of something like this, is like, there's a comfort in being able to like fire up a creator and watch their videos and feel like like you're hanging out, like you're in the same room. Yeah. And I remember, like, that's one of the reasons I sort of like really wanted to get into this space, is because I have those memories of other creators where it's like, got me through hard times, gave comfort when I needed it most. If nothing else, just distraction from, potential things of everyday life. And I always thought that was really like very powerful, that what ends up being like, comedic YouTube videos with, like lowbrow humor can still be a lot of fun to watch and hang out around. And I just wanted to be a part of that too.
Yeah, I see that a lot in comments and on Twitch as well. Just people saying like, oh, Like I was down for this period of my life, or I was going through this, and it was just a nice distraction to hop on and watch you be goofy or whatever. But I can also relate to that in a way, because I've done that in the past myself. So while we're doing silly things, it is nice to be able to like help people out and just entertain people in a way. It's a very strange space to be in, and such a rewarding space as well.
Yeah,
super
completely
rewarding.
agree.
When it comes to YouTube, I was even typing earlier when I was putting in your name up the top. I put in YouTuber/streamer. Would you say that's what you call yourself, a YouTuber or streamer, or just content creator in general, or would you just focus in on the YouTube side of things?
I would. It's bizarre to think about, actually, because I guess technically, like, I am now also a streamer.
Yeah. Since January, right?
Yeah, since about you've done your homework.
Oh, I've done my homework for our first time. Yeah. And I even know that's a meme on your channel. I was looking at your wiki and everything.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah, I did a bit of a dive.
Having a wiki is the most bizarre thing, because I've never personally like touched that. It just kind of appeared, and it's funny to see, like, and I'll probably never actually edit anything on it. It just exists how sort of the community has decided what is fact or not.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was married with 4 kids for a while on my wiki, and I was just like, where did you get this? Yeah, I was like, God, I never knew. I wonder how they're doing. It's a funny one. My wiki is scary. It's all over the place. But it is bizarre having that. Yeah, I do too. I wouldn't edit it. Like, I just like seeing whatever chaotic explanations are made and just leave that. That's canon now. That's my lore.
That is fantastic.
It's funny.
But yeah, funny. I have several different birthdays. I've changed age a bunch. That's all very exciting to me. But so I started doing the streaming in January. Mm-hmm. I would say more YouTuber still than streamer, mostly because I just can't get a grip on how to have a good schedule for anything, as it turns out. I really thought that I could keep a schedule for Twitch, and it just hasn't happened. So I'm still trying. But I always have to take care of the YouTube videos first, I think, before I can then do streaming stuff, especially because, like, when I sit down and start streaming, I look at the clock and suddenly like 9 hours have passed, and I'm like, oh no, this is great. But also, like, now I'm going to bed at like 4 a.m. after like a 9 to 15 hour stream or whatever. And then the whole next day is kind of like a tired wash. And so it's harder to do YouTube stuff. And so I'm trying to always find that balance, and I'm not great with it yet.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to balance everything, especially when you're doing all your editing yourself. That's a lot of work. I did find it funny seeing the similarities on your streams and YouTube, because I assumed your streams would be kind of like what I do, maybe 2 or 3 hours, but it was the same kind of, not super often, but super long. Like, when you go for it, you go for it. They're like 9, 10, 12 hours. It's like, how does he do this? Because I don't know if I could. Maybe a once off kind of a subathon thing, but it seemed like every stream you did was almost a subathon.
Yeah, I don't know, like, where I found the strength for the streaming that long either, because, like, normally when I'm recording, I can record for like an hour or 2 before I get too stir crazy and have to like get up and walk around and just clear my head for a little bit. But I guess when it comes to streaming, because it's far more conversational and far more like stream of consciousness, you can kind of just like mentally wander any direction you want. It's kind of okay for the most part.
And it is kind of nice because you have a bit of company as well. Like with the chat, it's a strange one coming from YouTube to Twitch and just having that live audience. Like, did you learn anything about your audience from coming over onto Twitch and having their live feedback and how everyone interacts with each other?
Yes, because I'm sure, as you've seen, like, I mean, obviously, like, YouTube comments are I'll be very charitable and say they're a mixed bag of interesting opinions. But that is one of the things that I find really interesting and very different about a streaming platform, which is like the feedback or the conversation you have with your audience is sudden and immediate and right there. And like, you just kind of, just sit down, buckle up, and hope that people are nice. And I felt really fortunate for this, actually, because, like, you know, I think it's easy to get the feeling that the internet is like 99% horrible people. But I think this has happened. Like, I've spent a little bit of time lurking in your streams, and your community's super nice from what I can see.
Super nice. Insanely nice.
Yeah, and I would say the same for the people that hang out in my streams too, is like most people are pretty awesome, which is very cool.
Yeah, I wonder why that is when it comes to, like, I'm not hating on anyone who does dedicated content to one game, but with variety, I've noticed, I don't know, is it just the people that, like, are the audience there for more the people than the game, or at least more than usual? Because anyone I come across, like RT Game, myself, yourself, like, anytime I take a little peek in at the communities, it just seems super nice. I think it helps that, again, I know you might do horrible stuff, but you come across as a nice person, you know, there's no toxicity in yourself. And I think similar people are going to be drawn in by that attitude. And I suppose there's also an element of people on YouTube watching you who aren't even that used to Twitch might come over, and if they're going to all that effort to come over and watch you on Twitch, they genuinely like you and they want to hang out with you, and they're going to be nice, and the whole community interacts in that similar way. But I know I learned a ton about my community because I expected some edgelords in my chat, but no, everyone's just lovely.
Yeah, and I found too, when the overall everybody is very positive, I think even edgelords can be won over, or they'll leave, one of the two. But like, it seems like a lot of people like hit that point where they're like, oh, I actually find it. I mean, you know, I think we've all had points in our lives where we've been total edgelords, and I think it's for a lot of people, it's that turning point when they realize that sort of just being generally nice ends up actually feeling better overall.
Yeah.
Not always, obviously, but in general, just I found that, yeah, the positivity breeds positivity. And for me, especially too, like you were saying, like, I was like, all right, what is the audience going to be like when I'm suddenly more accessible? But yeah, I think there was something where, I mean, for me with videos too, I'm sure for you too, like, it's about having fun. It's not about, like, even if we find like glitches or mess around with a game, it's not about like dunking on all the hard work that like a team has done to make that game. It's just about having fun with the product.
Exactly, yeah. And you may not be doing it in the way intended, but I'm sure, like, I watched a few videos where people were speedrunning the games and devs were watching it, and they were just impressed by how they were playing it. I'm sure, like, whatever way you're enjoying their game, they're just happy you're playing it. You're showing it off to all these people and having a great time. And again, as you said, as long as you're not like, look at this shitty game, look at all this, that, like, it's all in good fun, which is nice.
Yeah. Probably one of the funniest things for me was starting to get emails from like some development teams that were like, would you have interest in playing our game? There are so many bugs for you to fuck with. I'm like,
it is so broken. We hardly even tried, honestly. That's funny.
Just get a key and have fun.
Did you ever have someone contact you afterwards and like either be annoyed or try and explain things that they might have seen you exploit games a bit or exploit bugs, and they get a little bit upset with you?
I think once I went that path of like, let's just mess around, I don't think I did, actually. I think the only time I can remember is I played one game called Moon River where, and this was before I started like breaking games. So I was just playing the game all the way through. And like towards the end, there was just like a frustrating battle that I was like complaining about. And the guy did email me, or no, DM'd me and was like, here's how you did the fight wrong. And I was like, listen, not my fault the fight went that way. But I think that's the only time I've ever felt like a developer might have been annoyed. But I was also complaining pretty hard in that video. So I think it's kind of warranted that they would want to contact me and be like, yo, here's how you do it. Stop complaining.
Yeah, like you can see their point of view. Like I would say for a game dev perspective, you shouldn't be getting upset with anyone who's, you know, frustrated with the game, because I think it's just natural. If you find stuff hard, you're going to get frustrated and be like, it's not the player, it's the game. But you can't understand from their perspective if they're like, oh man, he's misunderstanding it. It's his fault.
Yeah, that's got to be frustrating too. Like if you spend a ton of time working on something and being like, well, I know how to do it, and then you watch a player just have such an like a different way of even approaching it. You're like, what? I imagine as the developer, you're like, why would you even try to do it that way? What's wrong with you?
But it's also like feedback in a way, because I've had similar thing, like a similar vein, where I might have said a joke or something and it didn't come across right. It confused people. They didn't realize I was joking. They thought I was serious, and I was like, okay, maybe some of these might be like, what's wrong with you? Why are you taking it this way? But other times I've like, okay, that's my fault. I didn't make that clear enough. And it's kind of the same with the games. It's like, maybe it just needs a bit of tweaking to point people in the right direction sometimes. So it's just important to take this feedback and not take it too personally.
This is one of the things that I love about YouTube and editing, is you can stare at a joke for a while and be like, okay, is this landing the way I'm hoping it will, or is there a way that this can be taken like incorrectly, or like am I selling this quite right? And I feel like there's been times when I've had to edit out stuff where I was like, oh, I really like that, but I don't think it's going to make any sense. It makes me laugh, but I don't think anyone's going to understand what I'm trying to go for.
Yeah, there's a few times like that where it happens all the time, I should say, where I'm like, this is funny to me, but I don't think anyone's going to get it, or this requires so much context, it's not worth including, because it's like a minute of content for one joke. Like, I might think the joke is very good, but there's no point. But I was thinking about that when it comes to your content, because you must have so much more footage recorded. Like, I struggled to cut down an hour to an hour and a half of footage. You must have to cut a lot. And when it's your own video, sometimes it can be hard to be objective on what's funny for the audience, what the best parts are to leave in. Is that something you struggle with, or are you used to it where you're like, no, all this can go and these are the good parts?
It's sometimes really easy and sometimes really heartbreaking, because there's sometimes, like you were saying exactly, which is like, I go hard for like a minute on one joke that makes me laugh, and then I'm like, oh man, the pacing's really dragged down by this one thing, but I love it so much. What do I do? Then I'm like, I just have to get rid of it. Goodbye joke. Maybe for another video one day, or like for like a B-roll, like outtake reel or something. But for when it comes to how I edit too, like, I've thankfully learned some tricks to sort of like be able to get rid of big, massive amounts of stuff quickly. And so as an example for the game I'm playing right now, I mean, this could apply to almost anything I play at this point, but there's usually some giant space where I'm just doing a repetitive task, which, God willing, if I can, I will automate it so that I don't have to actually keep clicking until I have carpal tunnel syndrome. But like, so like a good example is when I was playing this game called Hydroneer, a gag that I like to do every video is like, I just start fishing in the game, because it's relatively easy to fish and it gets you small amounts of money. So you can actually like turn small amounts of money into massive amounts of money, but it takes a really long time to do. And I'll usually leave the recording going. Well, some of the time I'll leave the recording going. If I know for sure nothing's going to happen, then I'll just stop recording video, because it just takes up too much space. But if I think there's even the small possibility something will happen, I'll just leave it going, but I won't talk, so that I know when I'm going back in the edit, I'm like, okay, I didn't speak this entire time. I know I can just cut it out without even looking at it.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Or I'll leave myself editing notes like audibly. I'll just tell myself, okay, editing Josh, you need to make sure to do X, Y, and Z in this order. Here's the pieces. And then I'll like talk it out as I'm doing it, just so I know what the hell I'm looking at like 5 days later.
Yeah, I do that as well, even though it's smaller videos, because I just make so many. Sometimes I forget like exactly what my thought process was, and if I don't put in those audio notes of me talking to myself, I won't have a clue where I was going with certain things.
Yeah. Do you ever start just talking to yourself? Not for future Kevin, but like you just because you're just in a different headspace. You just start rambling to nobody, and then you listen to it later in the edit. You're like, "What are you doing? What are you doing, buddy?"
Sometimes I think I've gotten a bit better at it now. But sometimes I do even just start talking and I'm just like, no, Kevin, edit that out. Like, where was I going with this? It's going to be a massive tangent that nobody cares about. It does happen sometimes. I was wondering where you were going with that. Was that going to be in video or out of video? Because sometimes, I don't know, is it from videos that I've been doing for the past decade now, on and off at this point, or is it just me being me as a person? But I do find myself talking to myself all the time now, and I don't know if that's from this. Is that something you ever do, or have I just gone mad?
Oh no, all the time.
Okay, thank God.
Never ending.
That's funny.
Just constant rambling, especially because my wife is usually like already at work by the time I wake up at the early hour of 11 a.m. or noon or something like that. Yeah. And I'll just be talking to no one just all day. If I had a pet, this would make so much more sense.
Yeah,
but I don't.
I often thought, like, where I used to live, I had a neighbor each side of me, and I don't anymore, luckily, because I had a megaphone that I was using on streams for a while there. But like, they must think I'm mad, because I would come home, I'd go inside by myself, talk to myself all evening, and then get up in the morning again, go outside for a little bit, go back inside and talk to myself all evening again. They must have been super confused what I was doing. Like, it must be very weird, especially for, it was an older couple at that side. They must have been like, this guy's freaking insane. Like, whether it be recording or not.
Yeah, I have a neighbor now where, like, we share one wall, but it's like cinder blocks, and it's actually pretty good at keeping sound from traveling between the units. But we have like a basement level where there's none of that, so it just sound between our two basements just travels.
Okay.
I don't know if you have basements there, do you?
I weirdly, I got this house and I didn't realize I had a basement, but it turned out I did. Found it by accident, lifting a little bit of flooring.
Oh my God!
In a small bathroom. And the plumber went to turn because he was handing me something. He kicked his hammer and we just heard it just fall. And we were like, that went, what? And then we like looked down with a flashlight and we're like, what the fuck? I found moonshine down there and like these big jugs and just a load of dampness. It's super small and it is useless, but it was a really weird situation to be in, to be like, I have a small basement. But yeah, tangent aside.
Wow, that's exciting.
It was really weird because at the start, the first like 20 minutes were like, oh, this is so cool. I have a basement. I could store things down there, or I could make a cool hangout room or something. And then like the adult in me kicked in, the kid version of me went down, and I was like, oh my God, the damp. I was like, what if the joists have been compromised by this water? What if it's like and in the end it did turn out to be an issue. There was radon seeping in through the basement, but we got it sorted. But once the kid version of me stopped being hyped over the basement, I started to snap back to reality and be like, I wish I just never found this.
Oh, I know what you mean, though, because, yeah, the first thing you start to think as an adult is like, oh, water damage. This is going to cost so much money. Yeah, it's definitely the adult side. It just ruins everything. Like, if it were a few years older, I would just be like, I'll build a fort down there. I would have just been happy. But sorry, I totally sidetracked your point. You were saying between basements, the sound just kind of travels. It does, and so I kind of wonder, like, I've never told them what I do. I'm just like, I just do audio stuff sometimes.
It's easier to just say that. It's easier.
If you hear me yelling and screaming, it's I'm just doing like audio stuff, independent contractor audio stuff.
Yeah,
just makes it easier.
I get that as well. It's like I don't even bother explaining anymore. I used to try, but now I'm just like, oh, I work online, and if they ask anymore, I'm just like, oh, I edit, and I just leave it at that, because it's hard to explain even to people our age what it is we do sometimes if they're not in this zone and they don't watch YouTube or Twitch. Like, a lot of people haven't even heard of Twitch. So it's a strange one.
Well, I mean, I would be sort of, because it's kind of a mixed bag, right? Because like at best, that person watches Twitch or YouTube and then you're like, I'm a YouTuber, and they're like, oh God, you're one of those people.
Yeah, and they probably just compare you to the worst one they've seen or heard of. They're just like, you're one of them.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you're like Jake Paul. I got it.
Exactly. They'll start doing community notices like warning, the menace. Call me Kevin. Let's game it out. It's rampant in our neighborhood. And honestly, if you told people out of context the videos that you do, it probably would worry most of the community. It's funny though when the real life kind of I guess I should say it the other way around. The online stuff of what you do in the online version of you seeps into real life. Although I imagine it helps that you don't do a lot of face cam stuff, if at all. Like that you have that divide, which must be nice in a way.
It is. It's been nice for a number of reasons, mainly logistical, if nothing else, because then I can just sort of like roll out of bed and hop on stream. And like, I think as unfortunate as this is, I think that also the bar for dudes tends to be pretty low already, like when it comes to their appearance when they show up on camera. But even still, like, I mean, I think one of the sad sides of doing content in general is like you do become, like, to a certain extent, to a certain group of people, you become like a punching bag. Mm-hmm. And I feel like no one is 100% immune to seeing like hurtful things said about them, and not having a face just removes one of those vectors of like something where like people that are just looking to be mean on the internet can attack. So that's been nice too, is to just not have that particular vector. I can just kind of look lousy and get out of bed.
I know exactly what you mean. It definitely takes a big target off you, because people, like, we all have our I guess weak points for stuff that are said. Like 99% of stuff is going to just wash off me. I don't care. But I'm sure there are things that if people start talking about or just, you know, be mean about, it would kind of eat at you. And it definitely takes that whole element out of it. So that is nice. I find it funny that you were talking about like just getting up and going recording, because even just before this stream, I was on my cross trainer, and it's in a really sunny room downstairs, super old, so it's like a little conservatory, but it was made very poorly. There's like perspex, so it feels like a glass house. So I was sweating, and then I was like, I'll just change my clothes, I'll be fine. And I was like, but there's gonna be like a few thousand people seeing me, and I'm gonna look like shit. I'm like, what am I thinking? I wouldn't leave the house like this. I need to go shower. You kind of get into a comfort zone. You're like, I don't care what my hair looks like or whatever. You hop on, because it does get kind of I don't know how other people do it, where they're always working out and they're always doing makeup and everything. I actually, they get a lot of hate, but I have a huge respect for people who put in that much effort to hop on stream and look their best if that's what they want to do, because I couldn't do it. I wouldn't have the patience at all.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just, but I suppose in another way too, it's also just, it's, you know, I say it like it's an attack vector, and it kind of is, but also it's like a huge plus for people to be able to see you in any condition.
Yeah, I mean,
because then people can relate.
There is a bit of a connection there, yeah. So I do get where you're coming from. Do you think there'd ever be a time where you might go, you know what, feck it, I'll do this video with a face cam? Or is it just like, nah, not for me?
I would never really rule it out. Mm-hmm. I think it's become one of those things where just I have other stuff that I'm thinking about first, and so it's kind of just way back on the thought process. It's like back there with starting a TikTok. It's just, it seems pretty unimportant at the moment. Yeah,
it's because it's with your content as well. It's so well polished. You'd almost be thinking like, would the webcam almost take it away from it? Although I'm sure you'd figure out a way to do it, because as you were saying that you edit all your own content, you can tell you're very good at what you do when it comes to editing. Not just what you focus on, but even the pacing, as you were saying, is super good in your videos. So it definitely, you're one of those few people, I'd say, geez, you're much better off editing it yourself, because I always try and advise people to get editing help, and I'm sure you could if you needed to get a bit of help and still remain hands-on if you needed to reduce your workload. But you're doing such a good job at editing, it would be so hard for you to hand it over, I imagine.
I appreciate that. I've kind of been on the fence about this because, like, for me, making videos is like partially the love of making doing the editing part. I really like doing the editing part, and I think that like a lot of the humor gets communicated by way of that edit, as well as like all the other crap that I'm doing in the game and the things I'm saying, and obviously all that stuff is really important to the whole thing. And it's not even that I don't think someone else could edit the same way. I think it's just become so part of the process for me that like I really like each video being like it's a complete mind dump from beginning to end of what I was hoping to see out of it.
Yeah.
But I do often wonder if I need to let that go a little bit for the sake of sort of like trying to do more stuff, or am I happy with where things are? It's hard to know. The line always moves.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like it is a massive time sink. Like it feels like your videos, they're so I guess they're not, it's not like daily content where it's like every video is almost kind of like your baby and you've done everything from start to finish. I did find I was in the same situation where I was like, no one could get it exactly how I wanted, and it'll just create more work. But I kind of eased into it in a way that I think I started by I was cutting it, so I was picking all the clips, then I'd send it to them, they'd do a bit of editing, then send it back, and I'd do the final run. And gradually we got more and more used to each other to where it's super streamlined. So I imagine that you'll definitely find your balance if it is a route you want to go down where you're heavily involved, but just easing up a bit on time for your own sanity and just to enable you to do other stuff you might rather do, like if it be recording more or streaming or just stuff in real life. That outside world. Yeah.
I have to think about this more because that it hadn't occurred to me, the process you have, which I think is really cool. So I might have to think about this more.
I think it's a perfect balance. Like I totally get it if people want to hand off everything, but I like having a bit of a personal touch on it. And I've worked with my two of my editors since 2018 now, so we are like super in sync with what I want. Like even if I don't make vocal notes for the idea, they'll probably even nearly kind of get it. But I still like doing just the final run. It still takes time, but not as much time as it would doing the whole thing. And it still has my kind of flair to it, which is nice. But I could definitely see you doing something down that route if you wanted to save some time, because it must be taxing. Although you love it, it must take a lot of time.
Yeah, I don't know. It's, I mean, yes, it definitely takes a lot of time. I think I've clocked it down to when I've got the final, like, when I sit down to do the full editing, I've kind of changed my process a little bit. But the general rule of thumb for me has been it takes about 1 hour per minute of finished video. Like that's generally how long it takes me to edit.
Yeah, like it shows
sure
in the video because it looks amazing. Like it comes out great, but again it shows your kind of work ethic, because editing is a thing where you could lower that to 20 if you want, just be like, this isn't worth the joke, move on, next one. And you just keep going. But it shows in the video, you know, it is worth that time sink for what you're doing.
Yeah, and especially when you have such a low upload schedule like I do, like you gotta make every little minute count.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's like if you want to go down that route of doing them so infrequently, they have to like really be a stellar video by the end of all that time. And just for your own rewarding, those serotonins you need at the end, you want the video to turn out good if you've dedicated that much time to it, you know?
Yeah, I want to say the part that I'm hoping to improve upon most is like, you know, I didn't think of myself as like a procrastinator, but I think I've had to come to terms with the fact that like, whether I like it or not, my brain is wired a certain way to just like, I don't know if this happens to you, but like for me, I'm like, all right, I've got all the footage. I just need to sit down today. And if I start right now at 10 a.m., I'll be done by the evening time. It'll be great. I'll go to bed and I'll have time to work out. It'll be great. And then cut to like, you know, dicked around for a lot of the day. And I was like, no, I can start at like 5 p.m. It's fine. And then suddenly it's 9 a.m. the next day. And I'm like, okay, time to work on the thumbnail now that the video's done. I'm going to upload now. And I'm like, I'm going to fall over. So I'm trying to get better about that part where I'm like, I want that part to feel like less of an event. I want to just have the video like done at not 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. the next day from when I started.
Yeah,
That's the dream.
Yeah, I guess it's such a weird job, and when you're allowed to pick your own schedule, like we all have our own way that our brains are wired. Like I'm actually, funny enough, the opposite way, but again to my own detriment sometimes, where I need to work and I'm like, I can't have this backlog going. I need to get it going. I need to do it, and I'll end up not doing realistically what's more important. Like it might be something like friends need help or family or whatever. I'll just be like, I gotta get this done or I'm going to be miserable and I'm going to be very overwhelmed. So it's interesting how we all can have our own different difficulties when it comes to this stuff.
My wife would be delighted to hear this perspective, because I think she's like you, and I think she's sick and tired of hearing about how she's like, wait, when were you hoping to get this out by? I'm like, tomorrow, but it's fine.
But you know what? That attitude can be a good thing for your own mental wellness, because sometimes people can be like, oh, gotta get that grind, and just ruin your life by sinking everything into sitting at this computer. And it's like, you gotta enjoy yourself too, and just do what makes you happy, to allow yourself to make good content. Because if you're sitting there miserable, you're not exactly going to be able to make the most, engaging, nice, funny content if you're secretly falling apart behind the scenes.
Completely agree. And I would say I've already run into this a little bit with streaming, especially with streaming like long periods of time, is I became hyper aware of when I was becoming grouchy, which I didn't really have to face at first. But when you do too much of it too long without giving yourself breaks, or just like a mental moment to relax, you just start to get a little bit more snappy. Yeah,
and I think as well, something about Twitch, I've gotten a bit used to it now, but when I first started, there's something different about, like, you might be playing a game, you might be a bit frustrated about something, and then someone in chat just says the wrong thing, and they might not even mean it the wrong way, but you perceive it the wrong way, and it's in live time, you're already frustrated, so yeah, it's like, it hits so much harder for some reason.
Yeah, and I'm just like, yeah, have you had those moments where you're just like, listen, stop it?
I have, but it doesn't come in often. Luckily, as we were saying, the audience is just super nice, but occasionally, like, and now I just troll them. It's like I was playing Minecraft as an example, and I kept dropping wood planks off my treehouse, and they're like, Kevin, get the wood planks. And I was like, how about this? And I just start throwing all my planks off, and I'm gonna keep throwing them until you stop. It's just in a funny way. It's not like I'm actually annoyed with them. But I have this nice balance now of they make fun of me, I make fun of them. It's all just like good fun again. So it's been nice to get that balance, because sometimes at the start someone would say something and I'd bottle it up and I'd be like, I'm not going to acknowledge that, but I'd start to get frustrated like internally.
Yeah, and like I feel like for a lot of things, right? Like even for like intense, at least in my life, like even like intense relationship tiffs, that kind of thing, like if you can find like even 60 seconds to just step aside and just not think about it for a second and let your brain like calm down a little bit, like everything becomes less intense. But when you're streaming and you just can't get away from it for even like a second, it's like, how do you approach like not, yeah, like as you're saying, like you have no choice but to like kind of figure out where like the valve is that you can sort of like let out some of the pressure. Yeah,
you're 100% on that one. And I think especially with the streams you're doing, they're so long, but I think people would also understand if you go, oof, gang, I need a bit of air here, I'll be back in 10 minutes, and you just walk out, because those streams must be so intense. It's rare to see someone go from not streaming to streaming so much in one go. Like I would find that a bit draining, I think, especially at the start when I'm not used to it. I'm not super comfortable. This feedback thing coming in live, it's just all very overwhelming. I'm pretty amazed that you managed to do it, honestly.
Thank you. I don't know how I found myself in this space. I mean, like, I think one of the things that I was not expecting is how like hoarse I felt afterwards from like, I mean, I guess it's really obvious when I stop and think about it. If you talk for like an uninterrupted 9+ hours, like you're going to feel a little worn out afterwards.
Yeah.
That was probably one of the big parts that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, I guess because you've probably done videos super long as well, and I was the same. It didn't really click, but yeah, when you do like very long streams, it definitely impacts your voice, and you feel that soreness and that scratchiness there.
Yeah.
Like I think realistically doing streams that long, there should be like vocal preparations, almost like a singer would do. But I don't know how to do those. And realistically, even if I did, I'd probably go, no, it's grand. And I just start the stream anyway.
Yeah, it's just like, that's what old people have to do. We're the new generation. We don't have to follow any rules.
Exactly, yeah. I let it catch up with me. It's fine.
Like, the thing in the back of my mind, too, is I actually have like a very limited, I should say, but like I have a little voiceover training, and I never, ever go back to it except in like extremely specific circumstances. But it's like, so in the back of my mind, I have all of those tools of like, here's what you're supposed to do for your vocal warm-ups, here's the kind of liquids you're supposed to drink and all this stuff. And I'm like, nah, I'm just gonna drink my lukewarm coffee and just start. Like, get up, just go right to it.
I am exactly the same with things. It's like, I know I'm better off doing this, but I'm not going to. And I just dive in and I pay the price later. Like, it's an ongoing gag where I'm like, oh, past Kevin's an idiot, or I'll leave future Kevin deal with that. But that is my legit thought process sometimes. I'll just go, I'll let a future Kevin deal with that thing, and I'll do something half-assed, and then I'll be like, God damn it, past Kevin. Like, what the fuck, dude? It's a funny situation to be in. It's just sometimes you just like, I can't be bothered. I'll just dive in.
Yeah, just life's too short to take care of yourself and your moneymaker voice.
Life's too short to take care of myself, or at least I'll make it short by not taking care of myself.
Exactly.
Well, it's something I found interesting as well. When I first spoke to you by text, you kind of hit the nail on the head, coming from my perspective as well, where I first got into Twitch and I started being like, oh, they're actually really nice content creators, and just getting involved with communities and stuff. On YouTube, I felt like I was completely in my own bubble. I knew like 3 people. I still don't know that many because I'm not a huge fan of networking. I always feel like they'll think I'm trying to get something from them or something, when legit I'm just looking for nice people to play games with.
I know, we're all just looking for friends.
Exactly, but there's so many people who do come at it from the aspect that are like, oh, I'm going to meet this guy to network, and he'll boost my channel by X amount, and then I'll have Y, and then I can get to Z, and they'll connect me to this. And I'm afraid people will perceive me coming from that zone. So I just avoid it. Essentially, going back to what we were saying, it's like, I know it would be nice and I'm sure they'd understand, but I'll just avoid doing it altogether. But have you found that specifically with Twitch, it has just opened the doors where you're like, oh, there are actually some really nice people who are here who just want to be nice people, play games, chat with me and whatnot?
Yes, definitely. Which was really cool. Like you, I would say that in the YouTube space, you do just kind of exist in that like isolated little space where you just kind of do your thing, and if you really wanted to, you could literally never engage with other creators or the community or anyone. You could just stay in that tiny little space and just upload, and like that could be it. Unless you chose to be like proactive and reach out and email. And like, I remember when I first started talking to Gray, it was like nerve-wracking to be like, all right, I'm just gonna send him an email. It's not a big deal. We're all creators. It's not gonna be weird. But it's like, it feels really nerve-wracking every time to just like, and like I've emailed some creators just to be like, hey, really like your content, and just you don't get a response, which is totally normal to not get a response. But I'm like, oh god, I put myself out there, and then no one responded.
When realistically, their emails are probably so clogged they just didn't see it. But I get what you mean. Internally, you're like, oh fuck, I put it all on the line and they didn't even respond to me.
I bet he hates me. Have
you had an instance like that? Because I have never personally had an instance where I've like started talking to someone and they were just horrible, and they were like, oh, you're only trying to contact me for this or that. Everyone's been so nice, but I still have this like fear in me that they're just gonna think I'm coming for the wrong reasons, you know?
Yeah, everyone's been, like you were saying, everyone's been really nice and super supportive, which is a great thing to to see in a community, especially because, like, I mean, one could say that you, me, RT Game, Dangerously Funny, Gray, like all these people are in like a competing space. Like that is technically true, but I don't feel like any of us think that we're like fighting against each other. You know what I mean?
No, and it's weird because there's definitely that attitude with some people, but I was funny that you mentioned Gray, because I was talking to a Gray still plays for the chat who may not know of him, and we were talking about this, and it's weird because it's not really gamers against each other on YouTube. Like if you're doing great and I'm doing great, that's great for both of us, because gaming as a whole is like lifted on the platform, and people who come from my videos might go to you or vice versa, and it's just great for everyone involved. So this weird competitive thing that people have just isn't real. There's no harm in other people growing faster than you or surpassing you or whatever it might be. You know, growth for anyone in the gaming sphere, especially our little kind of variety style, is just fantastic for all involved, I think.
Yeah, completely agree. And I also think that we have like a chance to also learn a lot from seeing how the other people like approach stuff. Not to like steal ideas or anything like that, but we all get to like be inspired by each other and like be like, oh, there's something that I never thought about, or like a way that I would never do it, and it's super exciting to see someone else do it.
Yeah, exactly. Like there is a line between like being inspired by people and copying, and the people who copy always get called out anyway. But I'm so glad in this kind of side of YouTube, it just seems to be like, oh, this person's doing this, or this person's playing that game, oh, that looks fun, and they just do it, and that's grand. No one gets all huffy. It's just like there are only so many games you can play. That kind of thing. But yeah, it's nice to be able to look at other people's and see what direction they're going and what ideas they come up with, and it might be like, maybe I should reevaluate what I do in this regard also, because I feel they're doing it better. And I don't want to copy them, but maybe just look into that same direction.
Well, like especially I think in the YouTube space, I don't really know Twitch very well.
I don't either.
Like,
I just learned what a pog and an easy clap is. So I'm so out of the culture.
Can you explain these to me, please?
Not really, because I can't really define them. I just know what they are. Like this,
they're positive, right?
Yeah, like. You're pretty pog, dude, I gotta say. I'm gonna give you an easy clap. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm into this.
One day I'll get like more than those two emotes down. Like I came into someone's chat, sorry to derail, just a quick thing, but I came into someone's chat and everyone was typing in all caps blankies, and I was like, what the hell does blankies mean? But there's like a Twitch extension called Better Twitch TV or something like that gives loads of extra default emotes. Had no idea what the hell they were doing, because it's usually like a little prefix, but it's just the all caps blankies. I was like, why is everyone saying this? And I'd already been streaming for months at this point.
So I finally just figured out how to add better Twitch TV like emotes to the chat, because I have on my stream, I have like the chat pop up, and I just finally figured out how to add those. And so I felt really good about that. I still don't have the extension on my personal anything, like in any browser. So, but like you, for the longest time, all this time I've been watching Twitch, I've just seen people yell stuff, just words. And I thought like, oh, I guess that's just the culture here, is people just yell words.
Yeah.
That's how that works.
I don't know how this like emote community thing is so natural in Twitch, but it's so nice in a weird way. It's just like everyone's kind of vibing off each other. It's bizarre.
yeah I love that too when emotes come in waves. Like
it's so good. Sorry, I completely derailed that conversation. What were you saying again? I've lost track.
Let's see, we were talking about being old and out of touch.
Oh yes, I remember.
Was that it? It might have been it.
Maybe that was it. No, I think we were saying about being in our own bubble. We were chatting to, or we were bouncing off each other in the gaming community and stuff like that, and just, I guess, getting inspiration from others in the space. So I guess we kind of did wrap up that kind of thought process.
Oh, I do remember one thing I was going to say, which was, again, this is going back to Gray, because he's probably the only creator I know of who has like done a legit like wisdom vomit onto Reddit, where you can like go to his like post history and just learn. It might have changed like a little bit, but I don't think it really has since years ago when he put all this down. But it's like you really could use it as like a manuscript, as like how to get started on YouTube with like your best foot forward. And one of the things, you know, someone asked him in like an AMA, like, do you feel like you, I don't think it was, do you feel like, does he feel like he took someone else's thumbnail type or like titling type or something like that? But the thing he pointed out was that like everyone kind of learns and builds on each other, and no one really had the original idea. Like we're all just realizing what it is that, you know, does well on the platform, really fits what we want, but also like it all ends up kind of looking the same. So I mean, like, I feel like our titling probably looks very similar because it works for us and it communicates what our videos are without being, you know, liars. They're actually like honest to what they are.
Yeah.
But after a time, like, you know, humor type content is all going to start to look kind of the same if you're staring at it for too long. And I always found that a little bit interesting, because especially like when I very first started, when I was like a really small creator, and I was looking at like Gray's titling, and I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to try stuff like he's doing. I don't have an audience. It doesn't matter. Let's do some experiment. And then that was one of the videos that got really big, and I was like, oh, shit. So after that point, like I stopped doing titling that was like very close and like sort of, you know, branched out and found my own way. But in that, I feel like that's what ends up happening is you start in a space that you hopefully will work, and then you kind of branch out from there. But we all kind of learn from each other in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's super interesting to talk to people like you and Gray who analyzed this and made a plan and like tried to pinpoint what was working or not. Because I feel like on YouTube I've always just been falling up, and I'm trying to learn more about the platform and what works and doesn't. But I feel like everything I do is by accident. I think it's just who I am as a person. I'm just not good at research and stuff like that. But I'm trying to get better at it. But it is super interesting to see what works and what doesn't, both on our personal channels and just the platform as a whole, and the trends that start and when trends stop working. It's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think at the point you are too, I would imagine that even if it's not something that you can like verbally define, it's like your brain is wired now like a certain way instinctually to sort of like see these things. And I bet if we sat down and looked at like 100 videos, not watched the videos, but just looked at the titling and the thumbnails, I bet you and I would come to some pretty like similar conclusions to how we think that'll do, just from seeing so much stuff all the time and being in this space and thinking about it.
Definitely. And I've started to do that with titles now a bit, and thumbnails as well, bounce them off people a little bit just to try and get some ideas, because sometimes I'm too hardwired to the point where I'm like, this is perfect, and then I put it out there and no, it's not perfect at all.
Yeah.
So it's great to get feedback, and even if it's just a simple word in the title, just changing things around, it's like, oh, if you think about it, this doesn't make much sense. And then as soon as someone says it, you're like, yeah, that makes no sense at all. I got to get outside my own bubble here and look at it from a third person perspective. But you definitely get into the mindset of understanding YouTube a bit more and your own content and what works and what doesn't. It does get easier in a way.
Yeah, I try to run this stuff by my wife, like, you know, like titling. I mean, when I'm not doing it at like, you know, the tired hour of 9 a.m. the next day or something. But like, if I've had a little time to think about it, I'll like run upstairs, because I record in my basement. To be clear, my basement's like a finished basement. It's not like the murder basement you're describing at your place.
Even the
and
whole
thing. I actually have a radon detector down here too, because I'm terrified of that.
Good, because we discovered it a little late, but luckily it's kind of far on the house. It's kind of next to the garage. Just a side note on that basement, the plumber who found it had done work on this house 20 years ago, knew the previous owner, and I was like, oh, what does he do? He seemed quite handy because he did a lot of work himself. He's like, oh, he experimented on cows. And I was just like, what? And he's like, yeah, I used to like open up cows and look at their stomachs and stuff. And I was just like, okay, I guess we just found this random basement by this cow experimenter then. That's funny.
Wow.
It was an eye-opening moment that maybe I should make sure all the locks are changed.
I hope this isn't too personal to ask, but what do you do anything with the basement now?
Nothing. It's not super damp and there's no radon, so there's no use of it whatsoever.
Is it like, can you stand in it, or is it like smaller than that?
Not me. I'm a little bit taller. I'm 6'1", so it's a little bit too small for me. It's
6'1".
Yeah, people are surprised by that sometimes when they meet me in person. They're like, I thought you'd be really small. Like, I'm not sure why.
You look tall. To me, you look tall.
It's kind of weird though, because you can see someone online and you build this perception of their height or whatever, and then you meet them in person. You're like, wait, he is way taller and way paler than I thought he would be. It's a funny one. I think I derailed the conversation again with the man with the cow experiments. I just felt you had to know.
Wait, hold on. I have a couple of questions now. So,
okay.
I noticed you said 6'1". Do they use like foot and inch measurements where you are? Or are you just so used to talking to dumb Americans that you just know now?
No, Ireland's a bit of a weird one because we adopted the metric system about, I want to say like 15 years ago. So a lot of people still talk in feet and even sometimes miles, not so much. Some measurements are still in imperial, even though it should all be in metric by now. There's just that generation of people that always grew up with it and aren't probably going to change. So it'll take some time.
Interesting.
It's really strange. I still remember when they first started swapping the signs, and Ireland being Ireland got loads of them wrong. So there was like motorway roads with signs saying like 5 kilometers per hour, and there was footage on the news of cars creeping across bridges with these wrong signs.
Wow.
It was very interesting. It was and very weird from a schooling point of view, because I was still in school and all of a sudden we went from, okay, you know, all that stuff we were teaching you, that doesn't matter anymore. We're learning about metric now.
Yeah, that's gotta. I'm trying to decide how that. I mean, I know how this would go in America if we switch to the metric system, which is it would be
chaos
chaos from which the whole country would never recover. Like that's,
as is tradition.
Like okay, so I'm assuming in Ireland there's roundabouts, right? Everywhere.
There is, yes.
And everyone knows how to use them because they have 2 brain cells.
Technically you should, because they've been here forever and you would think everyone would know how to use them, but
so there's some roundabouts where I live, like there's one pretty close to me, and the number of times I watch people like go not just like use them wrong or use them kind of crappily, but have like a full mental shutdown when they come across them, like just brakes on, stop and stare, and then do something wrong. I've been baffled by this.
Yeah, like you would think that shouldn't happen here, but it still does. Like I've gone around a busy roundabout and all of a sudden there's a car coming the other way around the roundabout with an Irish reg. So maybe it was a rental or something, but it didn't look like one. It looked kind of banged up, maybe for good reason. But like he just stopped the car and just kind of stopped on the roundabout and started waving his arms frantically. I guess he started panicking. But I'm just like, what the hell is going on? I did drive in the States for a bit when I was over there. I went to Vegas 4 years ago now, I think it was. And I thought I would be super competent and get a rental car, drive through the desert. Never driven automatic, never driven on that side of the road. And it was a little bit terrifying.
Oh,
the roads are vast. Like what state are you in, if you don't mind me saying? I don't know if you say this stuff.
I keep it kind of vague, but I'm on the East Coast.
Okay, East Coast. Yeah, I don't know what it's like in other areas, but Nevada was intense. I remember turning a corner in Nevada and we were going way up to Lake Tahoe from Vegas, and it was saying, I think it said drive 3 hours and take the next left. And I was like, 3 hours? You could literally drive across Ireland in 3 hours. And it's 3 hours and it's the first left. It didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, when you see, I should mention I'm from California, and so I'm familiar with like a lot of these areas that you're talking about. But yeah, like it is funny where it's like next left, 480 miles, and you're like, oh, hope hope I got petrol before I left, I guess.
Yeah, it was a bit terrifying. Like the Uber driver must have thought we were off on some serious, like, what's that movie called? With Johnny Depp.
Fear and Loathing.
Yeah, because we were so paranoid about being stranded out in the desert, not knowing what we were getting ourselves into. We took the week's bottles that we'd been staying in this place in Vegas with a group of 10, all alcohol, so Malibu, vodka, whiskey, whatever it was, filled them with water so we'd have extra water. So we come out of this like little house and put all these alcohol bottles into the Uber to drive to the rental place. They must have been like, should I say something to Hertz? But it was pretty scary in that way, because it is just a vast desert. Now, there was a bit of highway patrol and whatnot, but still, you're like, this is intense heat out in the middle of nowhere. Driving along this dirt road, it was a little bit scary in a way.
How long would it take, do you think, to go from the farthest, like, what's the farthest you can drive in Ireland from, like, you know, trying to find the
one
two
end to the other?
points?
About 5 hours. And
About 5
the
hours.
only reason is because the roads get so bad. Like, our country roads and just general roads are terrible, and our motorways only link cities, so there's no road to go straight from where I am, the southernmost point, to the northmost point. You'd have to take a lot of back roads.
Gotcha.
So
yeah, I was
takes
just
a
thinking
while.
about, I love hearing stuff like this too, because well, first of all, the last time I was anywhere in sort of not America was I went and vacationed in Scotland at some point. And I remember hanging out with some friends, and they were doing all the driving. And I remember thinking to myself, like, all right, I'm going to sit back here and pretend that I'm driving to see if my brain can comprehend everything being reversed. And it took about 8 seconds before I was like, nope, I'd be dead. I would have caused an accident right here, and then right here, and then right here. I need to never drive when I'm in another country where everything is switched.
Yeah, it was a weird one. You had to really mentally check yourself with everything, because even when we got up the first day after getting to the lake, I go out, I take a right at the stop sign. My friend was just like, if that was me, I would have went straight onto the other lane, like out of habit. But that rental car was just, I'm amazed we got away with it, because we were actually on the freeway about an hour away from where we needed to get, and a coyote just ran out in front of us. And there was just nothing I could do. Like, we just went straight into him, and like high speed. And that's not something you come across in Ireland, really. Like, the closest thing you get to it is like a fox or something. But even then, they're much smaller, and they're fairly jumpy. They wouldn't be a creature that would usually run out onto the road. Like, he just darted in front of the freeway. It was bizarre.
Yeah, so before I worked in video games, I was a filmmaker. And so I was out on set one day, and the prop master was like, Josh, can I borrow your car? Like, I need to go pick up something from the hotel. And I was like, sure. She comes back like 20 minutes later. Like, it's a quick jaunt, and it's like not in remote areas of this city. It was just like a normal small city. And she comes back with this horrified look like 20 minutes later. And I'm like, what happened? She's like, I ran over it. Like, a coyote jumped out.
Oh.
And I remember the only reason this really sticks out in my brain, because I had to go get my car checked because, like, there was something that was now not sounding quite right. And the mechanic's like, yeah, you know, it's fine. Like, the little mud flap thing under your front tire, like, I'm just going to fasten it back in. I also cleaned up all the blood. And I was like, oh, God.
Yeah, we had a bit of a similar realization, because we pulled in, and you had to go down these steps from the parking spot to get to the little Airbnb that was on the lower piece of land. And the next morning we came out and we were like, oh no, there was like a bit of the car hanging down, and it was just covered in blood that we didn't see at the night. And we were like, oh no. But we somehow didn't get charged by it. Like, I'm not sure how the insurance worked. I got the best package because I knew of my stupidity beforehand. That's my genius IQ coming into play, knowing how stupid I am. So preventing us getting into major trouble. So maybe that's why we didn't get in trouble.
I'm assuming Hertz looks at it and makes the assessment of like, well, probably not human blood, so we're just gonna...
Probably not. I think anyone working at Hertz has the training to determine that. Is your audio going a bit funny there? Is that my...
Is it?
I
What's
think it's going a bit
happening?
staticky for some reason.
Hold on, I can call you back.
Oh wait, I think it's fixed. Did you check? Oh wait, no. Yeah, it's going. Let's just call this back there. Yeah, let's make a new call real quick.
Okay.
Okay. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. Sometimes I forget that it's what I'm hearing, you're hearing, so I don't want to be like rude. There we go.
Are we better?
Oh, oh wait, no, it's still going. That is so bizarre. We shouldn't have jinxed it saying how well the audio was at the start.
Let me see. I'm staring at Discord.
That sounds better again now. I don't know if it's just in and out, but that sounds fixed.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna admit something to you, which is I'm on Wi-Fi.
It sounded like kind of staticky. Wait, it's occasionally it comes in, but it's not that bad. We can continue. It's grand. It's just a slight little bit, so I'm just
hold on.
overreacting here.
Let me
even the chatter's saying it's fine. So if the chatter's saying it's fine, it's fine. It could even be my headphones possibly if they're hearing it fine.
So you know what's I found that so I only recently switched audio stuff. Like for the first, let's see, that's one of the reasons I jumped into streaming when I did, which is I was kind of like, okay, I need to get better audio equipment before I go into streaming because I don't really have anything set up for like doing compression on the fly and things like that.
Right.
Because the way I did YouTube videos is, first of all, I used the snowball, the blue snowball.
Oh yes, everyone had one of those mics.
I used that until 2021. I used it for years.
Wow, Jesus.
To make stuff. And I attribute the audio sounding okay. I mean, the mic is fine, first of all. Like, a lot of people like to shit on that mic, but I think it's actually pretty good.
I liked them. I liked it more than some alternatives, to be fair, and it was cheaper than a lot of them as well. I thought it was an okay mic.
Yeah, and but then I paired it with using Adobe, what the hell was it? Audition, and using all kinds of like compression filters and just going nuts on that, and that's what made everything sound good. But that was something that had to be done like in post after recording like the raw, terrible sounding audio. And I was always a little bit afraid of trying to figure out how to make that work on Twitch, where I needed everything to happen in real time. I'm sure you went through this too, right? Where you're like, oh God, how am I going to make this?
Yeah, and just being totally out of my depth, like not because I'm used to fixing everything in post, and you can't do that on Twitch, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. And so like, yeah, I'm assuming you have like a mixer and what mic do you have actually?
I actually don't know, believe it or not, because a company sent me this mic. It's a C414. It says, I don't even know what, or it's AKG. Yeah, I get mixed up sometimes. I used to use Rode mics along with Behringer compressor, but now I use a Go XLR, which is a super nice piece of equipment for Twitch. Like I could adjust on the fly my mic, my Spotify, my system sound, and your sound all with these sliders. It's an amazing piece of equipment, and it's got a little compressor built in.
Yeah, so that's the same one I picked up.
Oh, perfect. They're so good.
Yeah, I love it. That being said, the amount of time I sat there and like was like, all right, I need to adjust, like, you know, the bass is a little too high and I need to adjust these frequencies and like you know, trying to figure all that stuff out for your individual voice. And I had this thing where I was like, oh God, I can hear like a static in my voice. What is this? And I realized after all this time, like messing with it and tweaking it and trying to figure out like what exact frequency is causing this issue, it's not a frequency. It's just there's something in my throat that's part of me. So if I yell at a certain frequency, it just comes out. I'm like, God damn it. That's not correctable. That's just part of the process.
Yeah, I have a friend like that now, and he's been in like some other friends' chats, and his voice is so deep that really deep that his mic will just stop picking him up because it's just like, no, that's not human voice. It's just gonna cancel that out. It is funny. Going back to what you were saying a while ago, you said you were doing filmmaking. What or you might not want to say. Are you okay with saying what you were actually doing in filming? You don't even have to mention titles, just what kind of part you were working on.
I'm happy to do that because it's already out of the bag, so I can't take it back.
Oh, okay.
But I did continuity. So, you know, when you're on a film set, I mean, just for anyone that doesn't know the way filmmaking typically works is you have 3 stages. You have pre-production, where you like plan all the locations, you hire the crew, you make sure the script is ready, obviously, you get your funding, all that stuff. And then you have production, where everyone goes out with the cameras and the lighting and everything, and they actually like film the movie. And then in post-production, they do all the like the digital effects, they edit it, they make sure they have all the footage, they get distribution ready, all of that stuff. So that's the 3 stages. And I typically worked in production. So when you're making a movie, they need a continuity person on set, because you film a movie out of order. You usually do it based on like actor availability and location availability and just what scheduling requires. And so it's like one day you might be on location once for that one day, but you're gonna, in the script, you're there like 4 or 5 different times throughout the movie. So you just film all those scenes back to back. And someone needs to keep track to make sure that the little details don't get mixed up. So when it gets edited later, it ends up being something where the editor can cut it without it having a bunch of continuity issues. So, I would talk to wardrobe, and I would talk to props and be like, okay, so here's what we haven't filmed any scenes around this yet, so we can kind of do whatever we want. But if we had filmed, like, let's say we were filming like scene 15 and it's like in a bar, and we had, been at a different location in scene 14 a day before, and we had already filmed that, but we had filmed it like 20 days prior in real life. Someone's got to keep track of those little details. Like, okay, when this actor left scene 14 and goes into scene 15, how many buttons were done on his shirt? Like, what did his hair look like? What condition was he in? Did he have any like, markings on his face that need to be matched for stuff that, other people don't need to worry about? They need to worry about lighting. They need to be worried about directing and all that other stuff. So they need that one person on set to keep track of all those little details. So that's what I did.
That is so interesting. God, that's like one of those things that like you read about, like where there were goofs about it and whatnot, but you don't really think about someone actually doing the job and all the work that must go into it. It must require so much organization and just micromanaging everything to make sure nothing goes wrong. Because it's like one of those things where it's kind of like being a referee, where if you're doing your job right, no one really even mentions you. But if you do something wrong, it's all your fault, right?
Yep, that's 100%
That's a lot of weight.
Yeah, and the thing, I mean, it's funny. The way I got involved in this is because I went to school for filmmaking, and I remember going to my first like interview, like to work on like a student film. Like it was like a no money, like small thing, but they gave a sheet, and it was like, here's all the jobs that we need people to do. And there was like, craft services, which is the person that stands and like organizes snacks, basically snacks and coffee for the crew. And I was like, well, I don't really want to do that. And then it was like, oh, here's, you could be a grip, which is the person that basically like carries a lot of the equipment from the big truck over to wherever it needs to go. So like sandbags and light stands and stuff like that. And I was like, well, I don't really want to I don't want to lift anything. And then I was like, script supervisor. That's what the actual job is called. And it was like, the description for that one was like 10 times as long as everything else. And it detailed all these things. I was like, yes, let's do that. That sounds hard and complex, but kind of important. Let's do that.
Ambitious. I like it. I don't know what choice I'd make there. That sounds like really overwhelming. I just feel like, oh, that's so much responsibility, and I'm going to screw it up at some point.
And the way I looked at it, and the way I always looked at filmmaking, which was like, well, no one's gonna die if I fuck this up. So yeah, it's probably okay.
I've had that thought process sometimes as well. Like even going back to driving, like about the Vegas thing, it's like, well, in hindsight, maybe something did die. But I was thinking, it's like, no one's gonna die. Like we're gonna be fine. Worst thing is I stall the car a few times, or I get a bit lost. It'll be fine. But I underestimated my abilities to kill. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say that one wasn't really your fault though. Coyotes just do stuff.
Yeah, I'd like to think that it wasn't, because if I tried to dodge him, like it was a 3-lane road, I think I would have caused a car accident, and I would have hurt someone either in my car or in another car rather than the coyote. So I wasn't gonna take those odds. But it's weird how the mind works, because you only have like a split second to make that decision. It's strange.
Yeah.
But you mentioned earlier you went to Scotland. Where in Scotland did you go?
I went to Edinburgh for a couple of weeks.
Edinburgh.
And then the surrounding area.
Did you go to Dundee?
Hold on, I gotta look this up. It's been a while.
It's a little bit north. You go over a massive rail bridge if you go by train. It's, I think, about 40 minutes away.
I might have. I think I'm looking it up now. I actually, you know what? I don't know if I did. If I did, it would have been part of like a tour. Because I know what I did is I stayed in Edinburgh with some friends, and then I took like a tour, like a multi-day tour up to the Highlands.
That was a good choice, to be fair. I was just curious because I lived in Dundee for a while, but Edinburgh is such a nice spot. I regret not exploring it a little bit more. I'm hoping to go back there at some point.
Yeah, I was really grateful. I had like college friends that lived there, so I could like be like, "Can I just crash in your spare bedroom?" And they're like, "Sure." So I was able to just like come and go as I please and just wander around, and didn't really have a plan. Just kind of, spent multiple. They have a huge museum there, and I spent like multiple days just going to that because there's just so much to look at.
Yeah,
had a great time. I hope to go back sometime.
I think I'd appreciate it more now, because even when I was in Dundee, I didn't make a huge effort to go explore because I just wasn't interested. Like, I remember I went to one of it was like a little museum in Dundee where they had like a little collection of items from Rockstar, because that's where they started before they were Rockstar, or before Rockstar bought their studio, or however it happened. And just seeing like little bits of Dundee that are in like GTA San Andreas and stuff like that. So that's how uncultured I was when I lived there. I need to go back and actually appreciate the city for what it was, because I was only 18 at the time.
Well, I mean, if you don't care, you don't care, right? Like, you can't make yourself look at stuff.
I didn't care at all at the time. But do you have any plans when this whole thing is over of like, are you going to do a bit of traveling or anything that you couldn't do before? Because I think we're all going a little bit stir crazy from this whole situation we all find ourselves in.
Oh God, I hope so.
Yeah. That's my internal thought process as well. Sometimes I just think, just like, God, I can't even remember what it's like to go on a holiday with friends and just have a good time, have a few drinks and whatnot, just relax.
Yeah, it was pretty exhilarating. So one of the reasons, if my audience is curious, like, it's been a while since I put out a video or done any streaming, actually, and it's because I went on a like honest to God vacation for the first time in a while. And it's usually centered around when my wife has time off. Like, if it's up to me, I usually don't think to do vacation stuff. I'm just like, I'm sure you feel this way too, where like there's always something you could be doing.
Yeah, it's hard because there's never an end to the work. You could keep working if you want. You just have to look after yourself.
Yeah, but she and I are both avid backpackers, so we went to like another part of it. We just stayed in the United States, obviously, but we had to get in, so we flew somewhere else to then do like a week of backpacking. But that was the first time I'd been on a plane since everything has been happening, and like. My wife is fortunate enough to already be vaccinated, but I'm not, and so I'm like, all right, let's put on the mask in the face and the face shield, and let's go full on this to just protect myself. But so I got to be on a plane and look ridiculous, but I felt secure.
That's the thing. I don't know what it is about this whole year. Ireland's been in a super strict lockdown. We still are, but I've just lost all caring for what people think at this point. I think I could legitimately go on a plane in a hazmat suit and be totally fine with it, because I just do not care. It really like has set what's important and what isn't in my mind, and other people care or thinking whatever they might think about me just isn't on the priority list anymore.
Oh yeah, and you know what one of my favorite things about having to wear a mask out is you can make stupid faces behind that mask and nobody knows.
I just imagine you pulling the funniest face and then like eyeing them like idiot as they go by. You have no idea the look I'm pulling.
Yeah, like my wife all the time, I'll just be staring at her if we're out in public and I've got the mask on and I'm just staring at her. She's like, what are you doing with your face right now? I can tell. I can just see it in your eyes. She's like, is your tongue out? What are you doing back there?
That is pretty funny, but it must have been bizarre being on a plane after so long of just being in this situation we're in, going back to kind of such a normal situation, but having it in such different circumstances.
Okay, so this is going to sound terrible what I'm about to say, but hopefully you understand where I'm coming from, which is besides the part where it's an illness and people are dying, that part obviously is terrible. But the part where no one gets too close to each other now, and we just kind of all give ourselves like a beauty bubble. I've been waiting for this day for a long time.
Honestly, I get it. Like, I hope handshakes don't come back. Like, now that I think about them, I'd never thought about it, but they're awkward and they're gross. Like, I don't want to be grabbing random people's hands. Like, when I was growing up, I was raised Catholic, and like even just going to mass, and I'm like, I don't want to be shaking everyone's hand saying peace be with you. Like, what have you been doing all day?
Well, and then you get the one person, no problem here for people that have this with them, but it's like you get the one person with like the really balmy hand, and it just, literally sticks with you.
It's the people who kind of caress your hand that get me. It's kind of like a gentle, like, oh, nice to meet you, and just kind of glide off your hand. It makes me uncomfortable. And the amount of awkward situations that are caused by handshakes, I say we don't go back to it. There's no point.
You know, when you phrase
fine.
it this way, though, I kind of want it back just because of how awkward it is. But I get you entirely.
Yeah, there are some benefits to making a handshake awkward. That like, this will get me a good idea of what this person is like. I'm just gonna do the most awkward handshake and see how they react. But
I used to do this to people that I knew. If for some reason we had to do a handshake in public, you can actually also hold your partner's hand this way, and they won't like it at all. Because, it's like when you hold your partner's hand, you just, there's various ways you can hold, and just hold normally, squeeze, all these normal things, right? Or take your hand and make it go, like, try to imagine just aim your fingers straight out and then stiffen them as much as you can. And then what you're doing on stream is, keep it tight.
I didn't
like
know
that.
You were watching.
yeah, I'm watching your stream. Okay, so next time your girlfriend wants to hold your hand, just do that. And she'll be like, what the fuck are you doing?
Dude,
this feels so weird.
That would be an excellent handshake, though. Like, if someone comes in for the grab and you just don't react and you're just like this.
Yeah.
It would be so weird. I like that. I'm going to use it. This is a great handshake I've learned today. The one I like as well is I used to do it a lot to friends or people that I might just start to get to know. I'd like do the fist bump motion, and then they'd return the fist bump, and I just grab their hand and just handshake the fist bump. That's a neat trick, yeah. That catches people off guard. It's a fun one.
Wow.
We could learn a lot from each other, you and I.
Yeah, all of it awkward, and I love it.
Yeah. Funny enough, it's something that I've been thinking about every time you talk about your partner. Is it like strange to go back to your wife and say that, like, rough day, I was recording this game and like, I couldn't make this situation, like, because I'm dating someone who is a content creator also, so I feel like we understand each other's frustrations even though they seem so trivial. Is that something that your wife is like sometimes like, come on, get over yourself, or does she kind of get where you're coming from?
So thank God my wife is a very empathetic, patient person. I won't say what her exact profession is, but it is far more important to society. No offense to us, but I mean, like, it is far more important to the human race than what we're doing as entertainers. I mean, and so like she will have really tough days where like, I mean, real shit has been happening, and she'll just want to hear about my day to not think about like some of the shit she has to deal with. And she'll be like, so how was your day? And it's just like, I really thought I was going to be able to get past this glitch in this game, but it kept crashing, and that was really frustrating. And she's just, I can see in the back of her mind all like the shit she's dealt with as I'm complaining about what I couldn't do in a video game.
Yeah, like I've had those moments too where I'm explaining something to someone and I know how stupid I sound when I'm saying it because it sounds so trivial, but sometimes that actually makes me feel worse because I'm like, why am I complaining about this when it's like such a small problem? But sometimes you just need to vent no matter how trivial your problems are, because everything's just relative and you just have a rough day and something just takes it out of you, It's a weird one.
And thankfully she understands, and
that is awesome.
She's a good sport about it. She doesn't want to hear about me talk about my videos all day long, although I do this thing. This is all for me. This is horrible. But, I typically try to be, I try to push her buttons as often as I can, but I also try to be sensitive to, like, if she's had a hard day or just wants to relax or whatever. But sometimes we'll be driving in the car. We'll be having a nice moment where nobody's talking. In other words, I'm not talking. And we'll just be driving. And out of nowhere, I'll just full volume just be like, hey, there's Josh. Welcome back. She's like, oh, my God. Why?
Welcome back to Driving with Josh. Just got a massive monologue. That is great. We like, definitely do similar pranks on our partners.
Do you do that too?
I don't do that specific thing, but all in the same vein, just messing around, goofing about. But I think it's because our jobs kind of encourage us to do that as well, and it's just part of who we are, just our personality. So, they got to deal with it, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's one side effect, not just of the channel, because I always played games this way, but like she absolutely never wants to watch me play games, because she's watched me play like Breath of the Wild, and she's like, oh, let's go explore this thing, and I'll just like be fascinated on trying to like get a boulder to like bounce a certain way for like 3 hours. And she's like, I can't watch this. You're not doing anything. You're just sitting here running against the wall over and over again. How is this fun for you? And I'm like, I don't know. Is it not fun for you?
Is she into gaming herself, or
she plays limited amounts of games, but she doesn't normally. It's not her first hobby. Yeah. But it's bizarre because it's not like, when I think of people that play like games more casually, like I picture a certain subset of games, and I can't really think of exactly what that would be, but I picture just like, you don't get too deep into any like intense game, but she'll play like The Long Dark, which is like a fairly intense survival game. And I'm not sure, this is actually how I learned about Gray Still Plays, by the way, is not initially for me looking it up and finding all of his amazing wisdom on Reddit. It was because my wife would watch his Long Dark videos to learn about The Long Dark.
That is interesting. That is a weird game to pick out for someone who's not into games. Like, I understand why, but at the same time, it's like, how would you even find it if you're not that big into games? Jeez.
I don't know. Yeah, it was like she plays The Sims and makes all her friends in The Sims and just kind of does that for a little while and enjoys making houses, and then The Long Dark.
It is a funny one, isn't it? That is interesting. Because we're kind of in the same situation where my girlfriend hasn't really ever played games, but is starting to get into them now a bit.
That's got to be exciting.
It is, and it's funny and weird to teach someone how to play games when they've literally never played games, because it's so rare, and you're explaining something and they're like, okay, that's great, I'll understand that later, but how do I walk? And it's just such the basics that you have to explain. And of course, me being me, completely trolling half the time and making up stuff, and like even on Minecraft locking her in a little box and then just being, that's Ralph the Darkness, he's coming for you, he's the final boss, you gotta spin around and drop all your items, all this random stuff. But it's been fun. It has been fun.
At what level does she believe you at this point?
Everything. Even to this point, after like 2 years of knowing her, still like everything. And we've played a bit on stream as well, an odd time. And just having that, like, oh, how do I make a crafting bench? And then, spin around. And then she'll spin and I'll place in the ground. She'll be like, oh. It like, doesn't get that I am who I am sometimes. Because I think she herself is so genuine and nice and honest, and she doesn't mess with people, that she never expect others to do it.
I can only imagine, too, most of her brain power is spent just trying to get used to this entire new medium of, like...
True.
And you're over there just like feeding her garbage.
Yeah, you're already overwhelmed, so you're not thinking that your teacher is going to be making it even harder on you.
That is fantastic.
It has been fun, I gotta say.
What are some of her favorite games?
Well, what's she been playing recently? Like, she really likes Stardew, that kind of thing. Really likes watching Zelda, funny you mention it. And just like party games, stuff that are kind of easy to pick up, like Mario Party or Pommel Party. that kind of stuff that doesn't need a lot of mechanical knowledge of how things work, because even the WASD was very weird to her. But anything that's
totally
just fun,
that.
quirky, social is she's a big fan of. And luckily there's a lot of games like that.
Of all the games that I try to get my wife to sit down and play with me, like the only two that have really stuck is Overcooked, which thank God we're still together after playing Overcooked.
That's a tough one, dude. That, for again, someone not into gaming, that like it's a stressful game, both mechanically and just for your mental sanity.
I know. Well, also too, like she only wants to play that after she's had like a glass of wine or two. Me too. And so it's like she's also very genuine and, dare I say, normal until this moment. And then she just becomes like ultra troll. So like I'm trying real hard to keep everything together in Overcooked. I'm like, okay, we need to get this thing and cook this thing and chop this thing. What are you doing? And she's over there just like, hey, just making it worse for everybody. But so there's that. But the game we play most together is probably Monopoly on the Wii for some reason.
You pick such divisive games. Overcooked and Monopoly could destroy families, but you're just diving right in there. It's good. You test yourselves, so you know you can overcome anything if you can play those games. To
be fair, with Monopoly, we usually gang up on the AI, which feels really good.
That's good. We got one that it's super good for me. I imagine you would love it as well. It's Monopoly Cheaters Edition. It's a physical version, but there's so many ways that you're allowed to cheat, and it's determined by 5 cards on the board. So you will have 5 random ways you can cheat, and if you manage to pull it off and a full round goes around, you get that card and it has a reward on the other side. By just being mischievous and even just stealing money from people, if you're allowed to do it in creative ways, it's just so fun. I imagine you'd have a blast with it.
Oh, that sounds great. And honestly, almost might make Monopoly more balanced in a way.
It speeds it up a lot, because like even certain things, like I go to reach for the dice, one of the cards says steal a property. I've like gone out with my left hand, and with my right hand I've moved the hotel to my property, and I just get to keep it because that was one of the things that was allowed on the cards. And
wow.
they didn't notice before the whole thing went around. It's very fun for people who like to mess with their friends and family.
Oh, that sounds perfect.
It's very good. Unfortunately, there's no AI with the real boards, so maybe stay away if you're afraid that it might cause a division.
Oh man, now I'm lost in thought about how nice it would be to be in a room with people again.
Oh, I know.
Just in general.
I keep thinking about it, like all the stuff that one of my mods just wrote in chat, "You're such a gobshite," laughing my ass off. But yeah, I've been thinking the same constantly. Just like I'm itching to go somewhere or do something, go to a pub, play a board game, do anything at all that is face-to-face interactions with people. It would be so nice.
Right? I completely agree. By the way, I really like your setup in your background there.
Thank you. It's changed around a bit. I used to be off in this corner and you'd only see my wardrobes over in front of me. But it's all changed around now. I had this light already. It's like it can change colors and all that, and it shows off a bit more personality and a bit more room, that it's like I'm not just sitting in a void. I actually sit in an okay room, and it's got posters up, consoles, little toys, which is kind of weird for a fully grown man to own, but they have context. There are a reason for it.
What is the context? I see it. Is that a baby?
That is Kevin Jr., yes. Hold on, I'll show you. So Kevin Jr. has had a bit of a rough childhood. He comes with a game called Babysitting Mama, where you get the baby, you can put the Wii controller in its back and use the baby as a motion controller. But the baby and I didn't get along too well, and by the end of the video I ended up booting him across the back garden, and he's got a bit of a cut here that my mom was kind enough to sew up. So that's why he's there, and there's like a 0.1% chance if someone subscribes that a little gif comes up on the stream of me booting the baby across the garden. We got Jim Pickens, who's my sim. We did like a limited run of those plushies, and then Asmer is just a company sent him to me, and the stream loves him, and if I move him out of the shot they panic, so he has to stay there. So there is There is context. I'm not sure if the context helps, but there is context.
I love the object permanence of
That's
that.
exactly the situation we deal with. If I leave the frame, they think I'm dead. If the penguin leaves the frame, they think Asmer's dead. So there's just general panic on this channel at all times.
I love that.
Yeah.
Have you ever had one of your little, because I see the sound foam in the background. Have you ever had a piece just fall off the wall while you're streaming?
Not when I'm streaming. It's all pinned up there, so it's actually not as secure as it should be, because a lot of people glue them on, but I don't think they realize how hard it can be to get it off, which it's fine if you know it's going to stay there, but when people go to take them off, that glue is going to hold a lot of that foam to the wall, so it's all just pinned up there. I need to change things around a little bit. I'm okay with this one, but the one like over my left shoulder here by the on-air sign, it's just a big panel where I used to face, and it doesn't really make any sense anymore. So that needs to move.
But it looks professional.
It kind of does, yeah. I kind of like the look it gives off, but also it's so overdone at this point now. I don't know if it's like a bit kind of stereotypical, like, oh, gaming YouTuber has loads of foam on the wall. But
my favorite is because I'm sure I feel like we all sat there and did like a bunch of research. We're like, wait, how are we supposed to apply this? Because I think our first instinct is like floor to ceiling, cover the walls, and then you read, you're like, oh, I'm not supposed to do that. I'm supposed to just like do like sections and like make the sound better, but don't over treat it. Otherwise, you're going to sound like you're in like a deprivation tank.
yeah, and there has to be some kind of like natural echo sound to your voice, because I was in the same kind of thought process when I first started. I had a tiny room and I was just going to do everything foam. I was like, it's going to be like a recording studio, it's going to be great. But then I realized, A, that's not the best way to do it, and B, that foam can actually be kind of expensive when you start getting a lot of it.
Yes.
Surprisingly. What kind of setup do you have yourself? Do you have kind of like a studio setup, or is it just like a chilled out room where you're in there to game and you just happen to work in there as well?
So I'm lucky enough to have this basement space that I just kind of set aside when we moved into this place for essentially just this. I mean, I also have like, it's nice because there's like a VR, like there's enough space to do VR, which ultimately just turns into only Beat Saber at this point. But it's nice to have a space to be able to like wildly flail your arms. But like I've got some sound foam and all of that stuff, especially because like it's got hardwood floors and all that, so there's just a lot of reflective surfaces. But I am in a sheet fort actually, and that's what I've always done.
Okay.
So I've got a desk with like a big hutch thing. So there's like a big shelf in front of me, and past that is like a big wall of foam, because I figure when I project my voice, I don't want that to reflect immediately back on me. So that deadens some of it, but once that sound comes back at me from that wall, I have comforters like clipped to both sides of the shelves on this desk, and then I have like a clothing rack behind me, and I just have these like giant clips holding everything together. It is as janky as you're picturing, and I love it.
I like how when I was talking about my basement, I was like, oh, if I was a younger version of me, I would have built a fort down there, but you just went ahead and did it. You built your
Straight
fort.
up cheat fort. Yeah, I'll see if I can find a picture and I'll send it to you. But
I would be interested, yeah. That is another benefit, though. It's like you can do your room whatever way you want, whatever works best practically, and also is the most effective for what you do, because you don't need to have it like set up for face cam and stuff like that, or the right angle. So that is kind of another benefit of not having the face cam.
Yeah, and also like I've got the gold play button somewhere, but I think it's still in the box, and the silver play button. The silver you get, I know you know this, but just for everyone else, like on YouTube, when you get 100,000 subscribers, you get a silver play button, which is just like a silver looking thing with the YouTube logo. And then for 1 million, you get the gold one, which is like basically the silver one, but gold colored and bigger.
Yes.
The silver, and they they're okay. They look way better on camera than they do in person. They're kind of they're an award they give out for free, so they're not exactly like solid gold plated or something. But the gold one's kind of big and kind of heavy, and so I never hung it just because it requires like 2 places to hang. Like it's got so that it can not like sag in the middle. If you hung it from just one nail, it would just fall off the wall. And same with the silver play button. But when we moved into this basement, there was already like some nails in the wall. So I just found one spot where there was already a nail in the wall, and I just hung the silver play button from only one side. So it's just hanging cattywampus, just like too close to the ceiling. Like it looks awkward and horrible. And I kind of wish that I could show people that, because it just looks so terrible. But I love it.
That is kind of funny. It's like this great achievement that you've done, and it's just kind of hanging there willy-nilly. Like whatever way it landed is fine.
Yeah, just like it's like, nah, it's not falling off the wall. Hopefully.
It'll do. Yeah, I still haven't put up my silver ones anywhere really. They're sitting behind me, but I do have the gold one up on the wall. But for the longest time, these walls were just so bare. Because my house needs so much work to it that hanging stuff on the walls just wasn't a priority.
I mean, it takes more time than one would think, right? Like,
It does.
Just like painting and all these little pieces of stuff. It's just a lot of work.
Yeah, even thinking about it now, like I was only doing YouTube at the time when I got this place, but I would just record my video, do my editing, get it scheduled, do my thumbnail, and then head over here all day to be fixing it up, because the place was a wreck. So just to get this room okay and the bedroom usable, just have a bed in there, that's all I needed, and then I could move in and work at my own pace. But Jesus, it's a lot of work, and especially with older houses like this is, you find some mysteries, like maybe a basement, or maybe you take apart a wardrobe and there's literally pipes everywhere for God knows what reason, and I never will know. But that's all dealt with now. It's frustrating.
You know, you're living the dream though.
Yeah,
the adult dream.
Can't complain. I knew I was an adult when all of a sudden furniture stores went from my most hated stores to my most loved stores. I go to like a DIY store now and I'm like, this is my element. When I was a kid, I'd just be nonstop complaining.
Yeah, I know. You go into craft stores and you're like, oh God. But now you're just like, there's so many things on the list that need to come home with me now.
I just want everything in there. Right, I won't take more of your time because we've talked so long already, and I already know you must have a million things to be doing, but I need to ask you one thing.
I'm ready.
Are you going to the Josh fight?
So for a couple of reasons, no. The number one, so okay, let me tell you how I learned about this, because I've been getting...
I'm just glad you knew what it was, because I was like, is he just going to be like, what?
So I've gotten more DMs and more emails about the Josh fight than literally anything else combined. And so at a point, like usually stuff like that, I kind of like, sounds like a meme, that's fine. And then I don't really think too hard about it.
Yeah.
But this one I was like, what is this? So I finally looked it up. And first of all, for me to get out there, it would be, I don't think I would make it anyway to the coordinates that I've seen. But also, it's not for all Joshes. It's only for people named Josh Swain.
Oh, it's even more specific. I didn't know that either. I only learned about it today, to be honest, but it was highly requested that I question. Actually, it's pretty much the only thing people were asking me to ask you, because usually I just go in, we just have a conversation kind of thing, but the chat was insisted that I ask about the Josh fight.
But yeah, so my understanding is it started with some dude named Josh Swain who went on Facebook and just found all the other Josh Swains and then challenged them. But I think the meme obviously took on a life of its own. But I think that's theoretically the only people that are showing up to get arrested for fighting. I'm not really sure what's going to happen.
Like, that's one of those things that I'd assume it's just a meme. For context, people are just asking. It was basically just everyone named Josh in this massive Facebook group. But I imagine I would think of it as just a meme. No one's actually going to show up. But then you get like the Area 51 where a few people actually do show up. And it's just like taking a life of its own. So I'm curious if anyone showed up in the end of this Josh fight.
Yeah, I wonder too, because I was thinking about it too. Like, let's pretend all 7 or however many there were supposed to be showed up. Let's pretend it was just them and like a camera crew. Like, at best, it's going to be like a fight club, but it probably wouldn't be, right? Like, it would just be like a big letdown. Like a bunch of people showing up and being like, cool, we're here.
Yeah, and it's like
Bye-bye.
I can imagine like kind of just standing awkwardly, like, Josh, you want to fight? Like, I don't know, like maybe if you want to fight, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like no one's gonna go there with like the boxing gloves on, like I'm ready to fight.
Yeah,
surely.
like to have a legit, like, I've been training for this fight. Yeah.
Imagine. Yeah, it's a weird one. Well, I can relate to those because the amount of memes that the name Kevin is used in is unbelievable, and I get sent them all the time. It's just non-stop. At least yours was a timed thing. Your punishment has ended. You will no longer hear about the Josh fight unless it becomes an annual occasion, in which case, God help your inbox.
Yeah, maybe it'll open up to it started out very exclusive, and then it's opening up until they're it's like Burning Man. Are you familiar with Burning Man at all?
Yes, yeah.
It's like started small, and now it's like the rich person thing to do. Go out to the desert, pay lots of money to be there.
Yeah, can imagine. All right, I won't take any more of your time because I've taken enough. But thank you so much for the chat. This has been super interesting. It's been great to
I had a
actually
great time.
have a chat and get to know you a bit and more about like your process, because I was honestly just super fascinated because, as I said in the opening, we're similar in so many ways but so different in other ways. So it's been super interesting.
Totally agree.
All right, well, thank you so much. And if people want to check you out, it's Let's Game It Out on Twitch and YouTube, isn't it?
Correct, yeah.
Awesome. And the mods have been linking away your channel there anyway, so I think people know where to find you. But again, thank you for joining, and I hope you enjoy your day. I'm sure we'll get to chat again at another point.
Yeah, I would love to. I had a great time.
All right, awesome, dude. Have fun tormenting your wife with weird handshakes.
I shall.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.